I think I actually like the guava syrup better than the guava jam, which is funny because it's actually a byproduct of it. It comes from the pulp and seeds that I pull out of the center of the guava. This is the pulp from 23 different guavas. I really like using the melon baller in order to get the center out of them because it pulls it out so perfectly. It's almost the exact right size, at least for my guavas. So then I'll take all of my pulp and I'll put it into my pan. I'll also place in 1 cinnamon stick and 2 cups of water. I'll then place this on the stove and bring it to a boil and let it boil for 5 minutes. As I'm bringing the pulp and water up to a boil, I like to try and kind of break that up because I really want to be able to get as much of that fruit flavor out of this as possible. Now that it's come up to a boil, I'll set my timer for the 5 minutes and continue to just mash those little chunks to try and make it so that they break up as much as possible. You could put it in the food processor or the blender, but I'd be a little concerned that it would break up the seeds, and that's why I don't do that. This usually works well enough anyways. While it boils, I continue to stir it. This not only keeps it from scalding, but it also disperses some of that cinnamon flavor from the stick throughout the liquid. For this step, I'll be using my honey strainer, but I don't actually want the bottom portion. This would be too fine. I want to use the coarse upper portion, which just happens to fit perfectly inside this pan that I'm using. If it was too fine, it wouldn't allow the pulp portions through, but if it was any bigger than what I have here, then it would allow the seed to go through. Now I'll place it all into my honey strainer, and what I want is all of the liquid and all of the really soft pulp and that lovely guava tasting syrup to go through. Then I just take my silicone spatula and I kind of press the liquid over the top. And I just go back and forth multiple times, trying to work that liquid through my strainer. It smells so good. It's just this light, beautiful guava flavor. And it takes a little while of working it over and over and over it. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll kind of scrape the dry stuff to the sides so that I have a little bit more clear space for the stuff that has more liquid in it. And that can make it go through a little bit better. And I just continue to go through it until it feels nice and dry, really. I won't be able to get every last bit out of it, but quite a bit. I wish guavas grew in my area. We get a lot of the fruits like the apples and peaches and pears and nectarines. And that's just lovely. I have all kinds of orchards near me that I can go to. But guavas, that's not one of them. I just kind of press down and try to make it go as flat as I can. And one of the things that helps with is if there's any bigger chunks of the guava fruit, it'll kind of press them through the sieve. So it takes a good 5 minutes or so to go through this, but it's definitely worth it in the end. If you look, you can see just how much drier this is now than when I started. And then make sure that I don't have any seeds on my spatula, because now I'm going on the bottom side. And I'll tip it up, and there's all kinds of lovely juice on the bottom. That's the thicker stuff, and so I need to knock it off into my pan. I don't want to lose that part. Now I'll take what's left, and I'll give this to my chickens, and they'll think that they're having a lovely tropical treat. If you don't have chickens, you can mix it with peanut butter and put it outside for the wild birds. That should make about 2 cups worth of juice. So now I'll add 3 1/4 cups of sugar and 1/2 teaspoon of butter. The butter just decreases the foam a little bit. I'll then place this on the stove and bring it back to a boil. Now that it's come to a boil, I'm ready to put it in my 1/2 pint jars, and I'll fill it up to 1/4 inch of headspace. Headspace is the space from the top of the food to the top of your jar. And then I use a clean, damp cloth to wipe off the rim of my jars. This is just so that if any syrup got on the edge of the jar, it won't interfere with the seal. And then I'll place my lids and rings on until they're fingertip tight. Then I'll process these in the boiling water bath for 10 minutes if I'm at sea level. I'm at 1,200 feet, so I'll process them for 15. But I won't start the timer until after it comes to a rapid boil. Now that the timer's gone off, I'll remove the lid, turn off the heat, and let it cool for 5 minutes. I then remove the jars from the canner, placing them about 1 to 2 inches apart so that they can cool properly. I'll leave them there for 24 hours until they get a good seal. And then I'll remove the ring and wash them with hot soapy water. After that, I'll store them in a cool, dry, dark location and use them in the next 1 to 3 years. So I was able to save just enough of this syrup for a tiny taste tester. It's so good, guys. It's got this consistency that's like honey, and then just guava, you know. Really good on pancakes, on waffles, on crepes. It would be divine. Strawberries with the guava syrup. Ooh, that would be lovely, and some fresh whipped cream. Perfect.